y'all! Welcome to this week's new books releasing for the week of February 27th, as we are saying goodbye to February and into March with some of my most anticipated releases coming out this week and next week. I'm excited for all the books of March mostly, but this week's list is rather intriguing. It does have sequels, prequels, things of that nature, differences. As always, there will be timestamps. As always, I forget sometimes. Timestamps though for each different genre, so you can click to the ones you might like the most. If you're new here though, hi, I'm Morgan and thank you so much for joining me. Some weeks we have more of different genres than others, and some weeks we might not mention a genre at all, but this is all mostly ones that I have found most intriguing sounding, and I think the majority of people would like to hear about as well. So let's get into the list, and I hope you enjoy this week's selection. Starting us off is going to be the fantasy genre, and our first one is a historical fantasy. It is set in the early 1900s in British, but also off the island. This one I've heard a lot of people talk about, and that is The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. It's in the early 1900s. A young woman is caught between two worlds in a spellbinding tale of miracles, magic, and the adventures of a lifetime. Off the coast of Ireland sits a legendary island hidden by magic, a place of ruins and ancient trees, sea salt air, and fairy lore. High Brezel is the only home Biddy has ever known. Washed up on its shore as a baby, Biddy lives a quiet life with her guardian, the mercurial magician Rowan, a life she finds increasingly stifling. One night, Rowan fails to return from his mysterious travels. To find him, Biddy must venture into the outside world for the first time. But Rowan has powerful enemies, forces who have hoarded the world's magic and have set their sights on the magician's many secrets. If I remember right from other people talking about this, I think this is also something where magic is like fading in the wider world. Maybe. This one reminds me a lot though of, what is it called? The Paper Magician. Just the sound of, I mean it does and it doesn't. It just sounds like it'll have that feel without being, that same magic style and everything. So there's that. Our next one is another highly anticipated, talked about one, and that is The Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This one is supposed to take place in the same world, universe, whatever, of the Priory of the Orange Tree book that she wrote a few years, decade? I don't remember how old that book is. This one though is supposed to be a prequel. It does say that it makes a standalone prequel. I don't get how exactly that works. I mean, supposedly you could read either of them or one at a time in either order. I guess that's how it's called, a standalone prequel. But it says this looks into the lives of four women, showing us a course of events that shaped their world for generations to come. Tunva Mellam is the sister of the Priory. For 50 years, she is trained to slay worms, but none have appeared since the Nameless One. The younger generation is starting to question the Priory's purpose. To the north, in the Queendom of Innis, Sabrian the Ambitious has married the new king of Hearth, narrowly saving both realms from ruin. Their daughter, Glorian, trails in their shadow exactly where she wants to be. The dragons of the east have slept for centuries. Dumai has spent her life in a Seacanese mountain temple, trying to wake the gods from their long slumber. Now someone from her mother's past is coming to upend her fate. When the Dread Mount erupts, bringing with it the age of terror and violence, these women must find the strength to protect humankind from a devastating threat. So the events of this are going to shape what happens in the Priory of the Orange Tree without having to know for sure, I guess, what happened in this. I've heard that the Priory of the Orange Tree, though, is like a thick book to get through. It is intense, so have not read that one. The next one though is one that I am very excited to get to because this was one of my anticipated releases, and hopefully by the end of the month I will finish everything else and can get this one read. This is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarifi by Shannon Chakrabarty, which is the author of the Daevabad City, right? Is that what it's called? With the City of Brass? Daevabad, maybe? This one though is supposed to be the start of a new trilogy. So it's already a planned trilogy, so we know we can fall in love with this book and have more to come. And it says, Amina al-Sarifi should be content. After a storied, scandalous career as one of the Indian Ocean's most notorious pirates, she survived backstabbing rogues, vengeful merchant princes, several husbands, and one actual demon, to retire peacefully with her family to a life of piety, motherhood, and absolutely nothing that hints at the supernatural. But when she's tracked down by the obscenely wealthy mother of a former crewman, she's offered a job no bandit could refuse. Retrieve her comrade's kidnapped daughter for a kingly sum, the chance to have one last adventure with her crew, do right by an old friend, and win a fortune that will secure her family's future forever. It seems like such an obvious choice that it must be God's will. Yet the deeper Amina dives, the more it becomes alarmingly clear there's more to this job and the girl's disappearance than she was led to believe. For there's always risk in wanting to become a legend, to seize one last chance at glory, to savor one last bit more power, and the price might be your very soul. I know, I've been in the mood to read books with older characters, with, more experience, more, And The Keeper 6, by the way, that one turned out really well. It was great with that. Our next one is more of a fantasy romance, and it is also a sequel book. It is called this one is The Sun and Its Shade by Piper C.J., and it is the sequel to A Night and Its Moon. In that one, we follow two orphan girls from the time that they are younger at this orphanage that is just an orphanage according to, the people in power, but really it is more of a home for, I don't think it's just girls, but I think for rare or people who will be, sold off into whatever lives. Well, the girls are very close, and one of them is just magical, I believe. No, well, it says one of them is beautiful, and one of them is fey-touched. And apparently, a madam of a brothel goes to buy one of them, and the other one ends up taking her place. And the one that was supposed to go to the brothel is Amaris, but instead she goes to a remote mountainous place where assassins are, so I guess she becomes an assassin, and Nox goes to the brothel. As they are apart for years and war starts to develop between mortals and fae, and the girls are struggling to, as they become into women, get back to each other. They want to find each other. That is their sole purpose and determination, is they are going to get back to each other. And this is the sequel novel after events happened, and the description for the sequel just starts out with "I love you," and it's talking about how they're ripped away again, and now I suppose the quest to reunite, one save the other, will take place again. And it sounds very sweet, and it sounds also very horrible in some aspects, but fantasy books have the tendency to do that. The cover though is quite awesome. I no longer know which side I'm supposed to display it on, so it is just, Now we'll move into more YA, but the first one will be a YA fantasy, and this one is also a sequel. This is Immortality by Dana Schwartz. This is the sequel to Anatomy, which it still says is a love story. Their covers, though, they have people in dresses. Let's see. Oh, the first line actually sounds cool. It says, Hazel Sennett is a lady who wants to be a surgeon more than she wants to marry. Jack Correa is a resurrection man who's just trying to survive in a city where it's too easy to die. When the two of them have a chance encounter outside an Edinburgh Anonymous Society, Hazel thinks nothing of it at first. But after she gets kicked out of a renowned surgeon, Dr. Beecham's lectures for being the wrong gender, she realizes that her new acquaintance might be more helpful than she first thought. Because Hazel has made a deal with Dr. Beecham. If she can pass the medical examination on her own, Beecham will allow her to continue her medical career. Without official lessons, though, Hazel will need more than just her books. She'll need corpses to study. Lucky that she's made the acquaintance of someone who digs them up for a living. But Jack has his own problems. Strange men have been seen skulking around cemeteries. His friends are disappearing off the streets. And the dreaded Roman fever, which wiped out thousands a few years ago, is back with a vengeance. Nobody important cares until Hazel. And now they're working together to uncover the secrets. And I guess they fall in love, because it says Anatomy, a love story, and Immortality, a love story, as it takes place after the events of that. Our next one's cover is quite beautiful, and that is Nightbirds by Kate J. Armstrong. This is another YA fantasy. It also sounds more historically, magically fantasy. The Nightbirds are Simeta's best kept secret, girls with unique and powerful magic they can gift with just a kiss. But some would kill to possess them. The church would kill them outright, but protected by the great houses, the Nightbirds are well-guarded treasures. As the season's Nightbirds, Mathilde, Asa, and Sayer will spend their nights bestowing their gifts to well-paying clients. Once their season is through, they're each expected to marry a great house lord and become mothers to the next generation of Nightbirds before their powers fade away. But as they find themselves at the heart of a political scheme that threatens not only their secrets but their very lives, their future suddenly becomes uncertain. When they discover that there are other girls like them and that their magic is far more than they were told, they see the Nightbird system for what it is, a gilded cage. Now they must make a choice, to remain kept birds or take control, remaking the city that dared to clip their wings. So, a general story, with fantasy of course, of how girls are put down. And they're going to fight against it. The next one is still YA fantasy, but it's more of an adventure fantasy, and also it might bridge between the YA middle grade point. It says part Indiana Jones, part Percy Jackson, all fantasy adventure. Peter cares about three things: his family, his friends, and escaping an apprenticeship he hates. He works to appease his parents, but bides his time until he can adventure on his own. Rumors surface of a legendary treasure, the Amulet of Power, that's been lost for centuries. With a clue to the artifact's location falls in their laps, Peter and his friends embark on a quest to uncover the long-forgotten mysteries of the fabled prize. Unfortunately, the group of friends aren't the only ones seeking it. An enemy will stop at nothing to receive the limitless power of the amulet supplies. The closer Peter gets, the higher the stakes become. Not only is his city threatened, but the lives of his friends and family hang in the balance. And the only way to save them is to find the treasure first. So, it sounds like a fun adventure story. Still haven't read Percy Jackson, so I can't say for sure for that. Our last YA book is a horror book, and this is called She is a Haunting by Trana Tran? I think I put an extra R in that one. When Jade Nagun arrives in Vietnam for a visit with her estranged father, she has one goal: survive 5 weeks pretending to be a happy family in the French colonial house Ba is restoring. She's always lied to fit in, so if she's straight enough, Vietnamese enough, American enough, she can get out with the college money he has promised. But the house has other plans. Night after night, Jade wakes up paralyzed. The walls exude a thrumming sound while bugs leave their legs and feelers in places they don't belong. She finds curious traces of her ancestors in the gardens they once tended. And at night, Jade can't ignore the ghost of the beautiful bride who leaves cryptic warnings: don't eat. Neither Ba nor her sweet sister Lily believe that there is anything strange happening. With help from a delinquent girl, Jade will prove that this house, the home they have always wanted, will not rest until it destroys them. Maybe this time she can keep her family together. As she roots out the house's rot, she must also face the truth of who she is and who she must become to save them all. So, horror, coming of age-ish, being true to yourself. Moving into the fiction genre, the first one is actually, I think it's more of a literary fiction. It says it's women's fiction, but it does sound like it's probably not going to be for everybody because it's supposed to be a very touching story, but it's also very sad. The concept of it, at least, it will make you emotional probably, and it's supposed to hit you in the feels and make you, yeah. And this is The Daughters of Maduri by Rajasuri Vairanya. I hate mispronouncing people's names. I really, really do. It's supposed to be a page-turning mystery and heart-rending story of a fraught family dynamics and desperate choices that face a young mother in India. It starts Maduri, 1992. A young mother in a poor family, Janani is told she is useless unless she can produce a son, or worse, if she bears daughters. But they let her keep her first baby girl, but the rest are taken away as soon as they are born and murdered. But Janani can't forget the daughter she was never allowed to love. Sydney, 2019. Neela has a secret, one she's been keeping from her parents for too long. Before she can say anything, her grandfather in India falls ill, so she agrees to join her parents on a trip to Maduri. Nyla knows little about her family, where her family came from, or who they left behind. What she's about to learn will change her forever. While The Daughters of Maduri explores the harrowing issue of female infanticide, it is also a universal story about the bond between mothers and daughters, the strength of women, the power of love in overcoming all obstacles, and the secrets we must keep to protect the ones we hold dear. Yep. It sounds like it would be very emotional. Very hard to read. Even if it's touching, very hard to read. Our next fiction book, it takes place in 1852, and so it's a gothic, supposed to be a love letter like to Victorian era fiction, but this is only slightly maybe less sad than the last book because our main character is a young widow. It says it's 1852 and Margaret Lennox, a young widow, attempts to escape the shadows of her past by taking a position as a governess to an only child, Louis, at an isolated country home in the west of England. But Margaret soon starts to feel that something isn't quite right. There are strange figures in the dark, tensions between servants, an abandoned East Wing. Even stranger is the local gossip surrounding Miss Eversham, Louis's widowed mother, who is deeply distrusted in the village. Lonely and unsure who to trust, Margaret finds distraction in a forbidden romance with the gardener, Paul. But as Margaret's history threatens to catch up with her, it isn't long before she learns the truth behind the secrets of Hartwood Hall. So yeah, a lot happening there. The next one though is a more upbeat. It is fiction, but it also looks into romance and relationship that siblings share and looking out for each other. That is The Theory of Not Quite Everything by Kara Gund. Meet Art and Mimi Brotherton. Yes. Meet Art and Mimi Brotherton, devoted siblings and housemates. They're bound together by the tragic death of their parents. Mathematical genius Art relies on logic, while Mimi prefers to follow her heart. When Mimi decides she needs more from life than dutifully tending to her brilliant brother, she asks for his help to find love. Art agrees, but on one condition, that she find her soulmate using a strict mathematical principle. Things seem promising, until Mimi meets Frank, a romantic, spontaneous stargazer who's also a mathematician. Despite Mimi's obvious affection for the quirky Frank, Art is wary of him from the very first encounter. Art's mistrust of Frank grows, so do Mimi's feelings, and the siblings' relationship is brought to a breaking point. Something about Frank just doesn't quite add up, and only Art can see it. It sounds cute. I don't know if it's going to be cute, but it sounds kind of cute. Our last fiction is called The Angel Maker by Alex North. This one sounds more mystery fiction slasher. No. Growing up in a beautiful house in the English countryside, Katie Shaw lived a charmed life. At the cusp of graduation, she had big dreams, a devoted boyfriend, and a little brother she protected fiercely, until the day a violent stranger changed the fate of her family forever. Years later, still unable to live down the guilt surrounding what happened to her brother, Chris, and now with a child of her own to protect, Katie struggles to separate the real threats from the imagined. Then she gets the phone call. Chris has gone missing and needs his big sister once more. Meanwhile, Detective Lawrence Page is facing a particularly gruesome crime. A distinguished professor of fate and free will has been brutally murdered just hours after firing his staff. All the leads point back to two cold cases: the gruesome attack on teenager Christopher Shaw and the despicable crimes of a notorious serial killer who, legend had it, could see the future. So I'm not entirely sure what all is happening there, but it at least dangles interesting aspects enough to make me think it might be okay. Our only sci-fi this week is going to be Quantum Radio by A.G. Riddle. This one was awesome. Thank you, NetGully. I got to read it early. I haven't decided if I'm doing a full review video. I don't know. But it works really well, as he always does, where he blends science with realism and real life fantasticalness, though it's just outside the borders of possibility. Our first main character is, who is it again? Tyson Klein, right? It says doctor. Was he a doctor? I know the other one was a doctor. Tyson, though, works at CERN, and he is a physicist. So yes, I suppose he would be a doctor. His research, though, and what he is doing, he's developed an algorithm that, reads the data collected from when the last time the Large Hadron Collider was used. And his algorithm turns up something spectacular. And he is trying to present his findings at CERN one night to be able to get more funding to broaden the research, to have more eyes on it, to really delve into what he believes he found. Because his main thing he wants to be able to do is branch all the groups of physics together. Theoretical, physical, all of them together. And he thinks this is what's going to happen. He's then attacked later at his home. His apartment's blown up. He's put on the terrorist watch list. And so he goes to the only person he can for help, which is his estranged father. I might be going into more. Yeah, I might be going into more than the description and what was it. But this thing he has found, though, it's, quantum physics, and that's the name, quantum radio. But he is not the only one who knows about this. And this group is trying to silence him. They do not want what he has discovered to be widely known. And possibly what he's discovering is that there are multiple Earths, multiple realities branching, speaking, sending us information over this quantum radio. I was not expecting to have a, multi-point of view cast, but you do end up with a multi-point of view cast. And it's interesting how interconnected they are and what that plays into, and how this book that I was expecting to be a standalone is actually going to lead into a further series. Not entirely sure how he's going to pull that off in future books. I see the groundwork he's laying. We will have to see how that goes, though, as it of course becomes this grand scale adventure, race against time, science. It was all cool. It really was. The next one is actually a first middle grade. I haven't mentioned any middle grades really in this series, but this one caught my eye because my son has been reading Percy Jackson, and it's somewhat in that vein of books like that. This one's main character, though, is a girl, and it sounds cool. It's Momo Urashima Steals the Sword of the Wind by Misa Seguri. All Momo wants for her 12th birthday is an ordinary life, like everyone else's. At home, she has to take care of her absent-minded, widowed mother. At school, kids ridicule her for mixing up reality with the magical stories her mom used to tell her. But then Momo's mother falls gravely ill, and a death hag straight out of those childhood stories attacks Momo at the mall, where she's rescued by a talking fox. And ordinary goes out the window. It turns out Momo's mother is a banished Shinto goddess who used to protect a long-forgotten passageway to Yomi, aka the land of the dead. That passageway is now under attack, and countless evil spirits threaten to escape and wreak havoc across the earth. Joined by Nico, the fox, and Danny, her former best friend turned popular jerk, whom she never planned to speak to again, much less save the world with, Momo must embrace her, definitely not ordinary, identity as half-human, half-goddess to unlock her divine powers, save her mother's life, and force the demons back to Yami. So it sounds fun and cute, and it will probably read more middle grade than anything else, but for those of you with kids in that age range, this might be a new series that they could check out. Or those of you who like middle grade too. I'm going to be checking out Percy Jackson for the first time soon, so we'll see. And our last book on today's list is going to be a self-help book, and that is Glow in the Effing Dark: Practices to Heal Your Soul from Someone Who Learned the Hard Way by Tara Schuster. It says, this is practical lessons for healing your past and owning your future so you can radiate strength, bravery, and joy when life gets dark. Let's see, it's a guide to healing your deepest wounds, getting off your good enough plateau, and creating the spectacular life you most desire. Tara clawed her way out of the darkness and recovered her shine, and in this book she shows you how to recognize trauma reactions and choose new ways to respond. Find what's really under your anxiety, repair your relationships with your body, and find solace and purpose in something bigger than yourself. Full of practical and achievable baby steps that we can take today. This book is for anyone ready to liberate themselves from their emotional suffering, discover their purpose, and finally sit in the driver's seat of their life. So the book sounds interesting, useful, and like a good guide to anybody who just wants to maybe get out of a funk in their life, even if it's not due to things, like horrible things, just life these past few years has gotten you in a bad spot, emotionally, mentally. Those are the same thing, Morgan. We've reached the end of this week's longer list. If there were any books, though, that you were excited about that I didn't mention, please be sure to leave them in the comments down below so that we can all check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching today. If this is your first video or you've been here for a while, I appreciate you. If you found it useful though and you're enjoying my content, please consider subscribing so you can join us for future videos or check out some of my other videos. Like the vlog that I posted for February's reading vlog. I tried, okay? We're trying to get into the vlogging, make it normal. I'm attempting. But thank you guys all so much for being here. I hope you're finding something awesome to read today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.